This is so wrong. We need to stop this. The chemical industries are trying to quietly pass something in a bill that if they pass this, all lawsuits where people were harmed or injured from pesticides will go away. I'm talking about the harms from pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides. This little section in the bill, it's called Section 453, is so evil. But it's packaged that they're supporting the farmers. If we don't get rid of the weeds, we're all going to starve to death. Just think about Monsanto. They came up with something called Roundup Ready, and they had a lot of people sue them for this glyphosate. They had to put out $10 billion in settlement fees. Not to mention right now, there's over 165,000 cancer lawsuits. If this bill passes, all the lawsuits going in the future will go away. This grants legal immunity, both domestic and foreign. Any future lawsuits that rely on failure to warn claims are dismissed. The CEO of Bayer said, ongoing Roundup lawsuits may make it financially unsustainable to continue to sell Roundup in the US unless legal immunity is granted, rather than holding the company responsible for the dangers. You've seen this so many times where things that are considered safe and effective, and then all of a sudden they end up to be very, very deadly, right? Well, that has to do with the similar situation with drugs, because both drugs and these chemicals use this loophole because they don't have to publish their studies that turn out negative. Over 70% of the safety studies are confidential. They're owned by the chemical companies. I want to just show you what I consider a front group that was created by Bayer. It's called Modern Ag Alliance, which are creating grassroots movements to make it appear that everyone's agreeing with their viewpoint. But I wanted to show you what it says on their site. They say, when weeds win, we all lose. Glyphosate is a critical farming tool. Facing increased demand conditions, modern agricultural practices are the only way to effectively secure our food supply. Glyphosate is the backbone of modern farming, cost-effective tool that can be used safely as directed, which keeps yields high, food prices affordable, and allows farmers to implement important conservation practices. Certain groups within the World Health Organization have labeled glyphosate as a probable carcinogen for humans. And a lot of people are winning these lawsuits from this cancer link. They're really spinning this as food security, because if we can't grow food with glyphosate, then we are all going to starve and we're going to have a very expensive food. So yes, you probably can make food cheaper with glyphosate, but at an additional expense, because what about all the other health expenses that we're going to pay for all the health problems that chemical caused? Now let's go into a very important interview with someone who knows a lot about this topic. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on. I really wanted to get your take on this super important topic. And the first question I have is, what is the consequence if this bill goes through? What is the consequence of what's going to happen to literally the US citizens, mankind?
This is an absolutely frightening time, because what's happening right now is that if chemical companies get this total immunity, it means that they are going to be able to go out and pollute and make different types of chemical formulations with absolutely no recourse whatsoever when we get sick from exposure. And what that really means is that, particularly with a lot of things that are going on right now, so let's say cancer, Parkinson's, ALS, infertility, there are a lot of different diseases that are now starting to be linked to pesticide exposure, like pretty strongly. The research is there. The EPA isn't moving on any of it as it is, and they know that people like us are ready to call them out on it, and that is why this shield is now going to go up to make sure that we cannot.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, the timing on this, isn't it? I mean, even like I think with Bayer, with Roundup Ready, the amount of lawsuits is just astronomical. So obviously they're probably supporting this heavily, because if they don't, they'll probably have to dismantle this product, Roundup Ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's egregious. So I followed the glyphosate trials in court because I knew that there'd be a lot of fake news coming out of that courtroom. And there was, by the way, because the truth of the matter is that glyphosate continues to be allowed because of all these lies that perpetually have been told about this chemical as though that it's so safe. Bayer knows that its time is up, yet, they're unwilling to just put a cancer label on it and warn people, because actually they could continue to sell it if they just put a cancer label warning on it. They refuse to do it. Instead, they would rather bankrupt their company or make sure that we are unable to sue for 57,000 different chemicals of exposure. Like, think about that. We are talking about, and it's not just like the fact that the pollinators are dying or, it's just the damage is so grotesque and so understated and also so dismissed as some kind of like hippie, love the earth kind of situation. Oh, that person's anti-pesticides. That's crazy. It's completely impacting our microbiome. It's impacting our metabolism. It's impacting our brains. I mean, we are now the front line of the attack from these pesticides.
It's not just the pesticides, right? It's herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. Those are also part of this.
That's right. All of those, all of the sides, all the kills.
So they would have immunity. So let's say this does pass. How hard would it be to reverse this decision?
It would be incredibly hard. So historically, let's say over the last 10 years, there are certain organizations that are nonprofits that work on behalf of humankind. And so they come and they sue the EPA for egregious behavior. Or, for example, I'll just use glyphosate because it's the most used ever. In the case of glyphosate, actually, the Center for Food Safety sued them, said you aren't looking at all the research. It shows that it causes cancer. The federal court ordered the EPA to go and reevaluate it, and the EPA just refused because they're sitting there waiting for this liability shield to come into play. And so if this does come in, it is going to be virtually impossible to reverse it without some sort of large call to action where our elected representatives think that they are not going to win re-election if they don't do something to reverse it. But think of what that is like, because we're talking about massive sums of money that we're up against here. Mm-hmm. We are very, very tiny in comparison to this enormous agricultural chemical lobby. And so much is intertwined because it's not just the pesticides, it's our entire agricultural system. Like you're talking about the Roundup Ready GMOs. It's the basis of our agricultural system that they are trying to defend, at the same time not taking into any account how, frankly, directly the farmers and all people who like to eat are exposed.
I don't know. For some reason, I thought the EPA stood for Environmental Protection Agency, protecting us, but it seems to be protecting another group of big ag. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but the roles have shifted.
It's feeling like they were shifted. And just an anecdote, by the way. So my life is basically fighting these pesticides and trying to get truth and transparency on what we're being exposed to. And last September, I actually went to the Office of Pesticides with a bunch of research on endocrine disruption, specifically how glyphosate is found in semen, it is decreasing testosterone, and it has huge implications for fertility. I went and presented this in front of the panel of the Office of Pesticides at the EPA, and they should have been shocked. They were not. They just left. They said, thank you very much, and disappeared, never heard anything more. They are completely, when you say that about the EPA, it's just so amazing because I'm not actually sure what can be done even to resolve the fact that there's such a corrupt institution without completely dismantling it and then trying to bring it back again, maybe under, better ethics.
Well, I think I have one idea about that. If we get enough people to fight back and actually call the representatives and make them aware of this bill and demand that they better not support it, I think that might help. What do you think?
I would love that so much. And I think that is the only thing that we can do here. We have to be so loud, like unprecedentedly loud, so that they know that their job is on the line if they don't represent what humans and Americans want.
They're appearing to be helping, but they're really wearing another hat, unfortunately. So we're kind of bypassing that. And we as just consumers, we need to do something, and collectively we can do that. What can people do from just a little bit to a lot?
This does not have to take too much time. So the very first thing you can do is call your elected representative. So your senator for your state, your 2 senators, and your congressperson. You call them and you tell them you do not support any language that would provide chemical companies legal immunity. You don't want to be poisoned, and you are the legislation as it stands now would protect 57,000 different chemicals. Okay, so that is like step one. Call them and tell them no legal immunity for chemical companies, period. Okay, that's the easiest. Second, you can go to stoppoison.org. You can sign up there on a form that's there, and I will provide you with all the call to actions as they come, because we're not just talking about federal level, actually it's happening at the state level as well. So you need to know what's happening in your state. Third, you can go to Stand for Health Freedom, and that's a great organization that is very active. They will have a link that you can just click and easily send an email to your elected officials. So there are 3 different ways to go about it.
Great. I'm going to put all 3 of those ways in the description. Please do something about this. If you're watching this, spread the word. Everyone needs to participate. If we all can do something about it, we can actually defeat this very, very quickly. We need to, because this is a big deal. This is not a little thing. It's not something that's going to just be affecting us. It'll affect our generations. And I don't even know how this would be undone once it's done. So this is like a serious, serious situation that we need to take action. And I really appreciate you, Kelly, doing what you're doing. And thank you for coming on as well.
Thank you so much for having me and sharing the word. We can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you.